Hello and welcome. In this video, we will demonstrate the return request process automation for SAP Business One. A return request is a customer asking to return a purchased product to the seller. This information is often sent via email and needs to be manually verified and entered into Business One. The seller must confirm the return request and then notify the customer manually. This process is costing resources. This process automation automates the creation of a return request on the seller's side. The process is triggered by an API which receives the return request data. The automation validates the incoming data and creates a return request. The processor on the seller side only must confirm the return request via a task in the inbox. The automation will then send a notification email to the customer. This reduces manual effort, errors, and improves work efficiently overall. Let us now have a look at the return request process automation inside SAP Process Automation. Here we are in an SAP Process Automation tenant. You can get the return request process automation from the store. Then you can find it under all projects in the lobby. First, we need to deploy the project so that it is ready for production. Open it by clicking on it. Once the project is open, click on the Deploy button that you will see on your top right corner of the screen. In the new window, enter the environment variables that are necessary to run this project. The processor business technology user ID is the user ID of the person on the seller side that will work with this process. This person will receive the tasks in their inbox. The Business One database name is the database of the Business One tenant that you want to connect to. The Windows credential name is the name of the Windows credential that you keep locally on your machine, which is saving the login credentials to your Business One tenant for you. The Business One URL is the URL to your Business One service layer. Please make sure that you also add the port. Processor full name and processor email address ask you for the contact details of your processor. And in the link to my inbox, please add the link that points to your My Inbox application. Let's go back to the SAP Process Automation tenant. And here on the top right corner, this is the icon that leads to the My Inbox app. Click on it to open it and immediately take the link and copy it. This is the link that we are asking for in here. Please make sure that it ends on inbox.html. Click on Confirm and then Deploy. Now the project is ready for productive use. It can now be triggered by an API. But first, let us look at the required input variables. They are defined in the process. Open the return request process and click on the Input tab on the right side. Here you can see all the input variables that have been defined. For example, we need to know the AR invoice number that this return request is based on, all the items that you want to return, the requester contact information, and if you want to return all items that are specified in the invoice. I will show you an example later on what a payload like this could look like. But for more detailed information on how this is constructed, please refer to the documentation. In the middle of the screen, you can also inspect the workflow of the process in detail. More information again are to be found in the documentation. There are some further setups to do that I will explain later on in the video. But now let's have a look at how to trigger this process and how it runs. Once the process is deployed, it is ready to be started. Go to Monitor, Manage, and Processes and Workflows. There you can find the return request automation. By clicking Start New Instance, you can trigger the process right here for debugging purposes. In the new window, you must supply the payload that would otherwise be sent via the API. I have created a test case here that I will insert. In this test case, I want to return the item I_0008 once. The return reason ID, which is defined in Business One, will be given here as -1, which is the default for no return reason given. The return is based on error invoice number 1046. Once we have started the instance, we can switch to the Monitor, Processes and Workflow Instances section. Here we can see the instance that we have just created. Under Context, we can find all the variables that are associated with this process instance. And under Execution Log, we can see which steps the automation has so far executed. Once the return request has been created, or if there's an error, the processor will be notified via email that a new task is waiting in the inbox. To trigger the process via an API, follow the instructions in our documentation. For the demo, we have built a simple web form that will collect the return request information from the customer via, for example, a web shop. Note that we require that the customer is authenticated on your side. Once the Submit button is clicked, the return request information is put together in the same format as we have seen it previously, and then sent to the API input to start the process. In my Outlook account, I can see that I have received a notification from the automation. I can click on the link directly, which will bring me to my inbox. I have a new task that asks me to confirm this return request. I can directly do this here via the Approve button. The return request will then automatically be confirmed, and a confirmation email will be sent to the requester. I can also use the provided link to open the return request directly in the Business One web client. If I choose to not accept, I can reject this return request. A rejection notification will then be sent to the customer, and I can add a note here. Let's accept this request. Now, let's verify that the return request has been created in SAP Business One. Here we are in SAP Business One. Let us open the return requests. Here we can see that our return request with number 3 has been created. We can find that the item returned is down here in the list, and we can also see that it has been confirmed. Additionally, in the relationship map, we can see that this return request is based on the AR invoice that we have provided. Going back to Outlook, we can see that I have also received the customer notification that was sent by the automation, as I am both processor and customer in this demo. Now, let us take a look at the further setup steps required to run this process. The process makes use of sending emails. This email server needs to be set up under Settings, Backup Configuration, and Mail Server. You can see that a mail server has already been set up here. To do this on your side, navigate to your Business Technology Platform cockpit via this button. You will land in the Destinations section. Add a new email destination and name it exactly SAP_process_automation_mail, so that it gets recognized by SAP Process Automation. We have linked some further details in our documentation. There are 2 more settings to be done here. One is to create a service key that allows you to authenticate to the API, which will start an instance of the process. Go to Instances and Subscriptions. You will need an instance here and create a service key for it. Save its information temporarily. If you do not have an instance yet, you can create it via the Create button. How to set up an API trigger is laid out in detail in our documentation. The other setting is to provide your processor the role of Process Automation Participant. go to Users and select the user that you want to have as your processor of the return request process. Assign the user the role Process Automation Participant. You can do this via the Assign Role Collection button. This is it for the Business Technology Platform. Back in SAP Process Automation, make sure that you have connected an agent to the tenant and added it to the agents management list. Just as before, the agent must be set to the background mode. To be able to send notification emails to the customer, you must set up alert handlers via Settings, Alert Handlers. Once the process has been deployed, you will be able to define alert handlers for 3 different cases: a confirmation email, a rejection email, and the wrong input data email. Create one by clicking on it, provide a name, and then setting the normal email information like recipient, subject, and body of the email. Note that you can access runtime variables via the Alert Parameters dropdown, for example, like the requester name and requester email. A finished alert handler could look like this. We have provided the sample setup in our documentation. This wraps up this learning session on the return request process automation for SAP Business One. Thank you for tuning in.